All right, dog lovers, buckle up because we're diving deep into the world of Border Collies. And let me tell you, judging from the mountain of source material, we've got videos, articles, the whole shebang. Someone out there is serious about these dogs.
And for good reason. This isn't just a passing curiosity, is it? It's about really getting under the skin of what makes this breed so special, so unique.
Absolutely. Forget those basic breed descriptions. We're going for the heart of it, the history, the reality of sharing your life with these dogs. Because let's face it, a Border Collie isn't just a dog, is it? It's a whole lifestyle.
A lifestyle rooted in centuries of history. We're talking the rugged landscape of the Anglo-Scottish border. That's where the story begins.
You can practically see it, right?
Yeah.
Generations of these dogs, their partnership with shepherds, their very existence shaped by that demanding environment.
And let's be clear, those shepherds weren't judging on a dog's good looks back then. This was about working ability, pure and simple. Generation after generation, breeding the dogs that could handle the work. And that's how you get intelligence and stamina woven into the very fabric of the breed.
You can practically see that history, that legacy in the Border Collie, even today. I mean, I'll admit I was totally taken in by the classic black and white image.
Yeah.
But there's more to the story even there, right?
Oh, absolutely. That black and white coat is iconic for sure, but it's not the whole picture, not by a long shot. You'd be amazed how much variety is allowed within the breed standard. Red and white, blue merle, you name it.
It's true. In one of the YouTube videos we watched, this rancher had the most incredible red Border Collie. He was actually saying that the show standards, what you see in the ring, don't always line up with working standards, what makes a great herding dog in the field. Seems there's a real concern about losing some of those incredible working traits just for the sake of looks.
And it's a valid concern, isn't it? I mean, when you start focusing on appearances, breeding for those superficial qualities, you do run the risk of losing the heart of the breed, those traits that make a working dog truly exceptional. And with Border Collies, those traits are truly something special.
Speaking of special, let's talk about this energy because, wow, these dogs are practically vibrating with it. The rancher's dogs, they were covering miles every single day, herding sheep up and down those hills. It's incredible.
And it's not just energy, is it? It's drive, pure and simple. Border Collies were bred to work all day long. So many of the challenges we see today, the behavioral issues, they stem from that need for an outlet for all that intense, innate drive.
It's like comparing a marathon runner to, well, someone who just takes a leisurely stroll in the park. They're built different.
Exactly. Larger than average hearts, incredible stamina. They're practically designed for endurance, to be on the move.
It's like it's in their blood.
Yeah.
Which makes me think about that look they have, that intense stare. Is there anything more captivating than watching a Border Collie lock eyes with a sheep?
Like something out of a movie. But it's more than just a look, isn't it? It's a language. Border Collies use their days to control the sheep, manipulate their movements. That's the real power of the eye, as they call it.
The rancher called it the power of the stare, which I have to admit, I kind of love.
It's this incredible dance of pressure and release, far more sophisticated than just barking or chasing. They're practically reading the sheep's minds.
Okay, now I can't get the image of that sheepdog from Babe out of my head. You know, move along, nothing to see here.
Exactly. But it really does highlight just how intelligent, how sensitive these dogs are.
And speaking of intelligence, I think our listener is starting to realize that this breed isn't for everyone, right?
You hit the nail on the head. This is a commitment, a big one. All that energy, that intelligence, it demands an outlet. They need a job.
It's like having a workaholic living in your house. A furry, four-legged workaholic.
And if they don't have a job, something to channel all that mental and physical energy into, whether it's actual herding, dog sports, or rigorous training. Let's just say a border collie can quickly become a destructive border collie.
The rancher was really big on that point. He said for his dogs, it's really important that they have that outdoor environment where they can run, where they can really tap into those natural instincts. And what's funny is for dogs that are outside that much, there's surprisingly low maintenance when it comes to grooming.
Right. It's those natural oils, they really do wonders for repelling dirt and water. The rancher said he hardly ever bathes his dogs.
Can you imagine all that running around?
Mm-hmm.
But there was one topic about grooming where he has some strong opinions. Neutering and spaying. He was pretty much against it unless it was medically necessary. What's your take on that?
Well, it's a thorny issue, to be sure. There are valid points on both sides. On the one hand, spaying or neutering helps control the pet population, and it can reduce certain health risks. But some people, especially those who work with these dogs, argue that it can interfere with their natural development, especially in a breed like the Border Collie where those instincts are so finely tuned.
It sounds like it's really important to do your research there, talk to your veterinarian, and make the best choice for your individual dog. Okay, shifting gears a bit here. Who'd have thought that a dog with this much energy only needs one meal a day?
Right. You'd think they'd need to be constantly refueling, but it turns out their digestive systems are better suited to processing one large meal rather than multiple small ones.
The rancher had a good analogy for it. He said it's more in line with how their wild ancestors would have eaten, a big feast after a successful hunt and then potentially going for a while without food.
Exactly. Mimicking those natural rhythms, it can actually lead to better nutrient absorption and better overall digestive health.
So we're talking about a dog that's literally built different, right?
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, even down to their digestion. Which brings us to, I think, the million-dollar question: how do you train Canine Einstein?
You've got to start by shifting your perspective. This isn't just about teaching commands. It's about understanding that you're working with a partner, and a very intelligent partner at that. Border Collies, they're incredibly sensitive. They respond best to positive reinforcement, clear communication. They want to work with you, but you need to meet them halfway.
And part of meeting them halfway is understanding those herding instincts are hardwired. The rancher in one of the videos, he was saying that when he's out there working his dogs, he barely uses any verbal commands at all.
Right, because traditional herding, it's much more about the handler's positioning, those subtle cues, and of course the whistle. So it's less about giving orders and more about that deep, almost intuitive connection.
It's like they're reading each other's minds out there. But okay, let's talk about what happens when a Border Collie doesn't have that outlet, that job to do. Because I have a feeling things can get a little chaotic.
Let's just say boredom is public enemy number one with this breed. A Border Collie without an outlet for all that mental energy, you're asking for trouble. They're going to find their own ways to stay busy, whether you like it or not.
I've seen videos, Border Collies trying to herd everything from ducks to children. It's hilarious.
It's all instinct. They have this deep-seated need to gather, to control. You don't give them something productive to channel that into, and, well, the furniture better watch out.
So finding a good breeder, one who really prioritizes temperament, working ability, that's got to be crucial, right? Especially if you're actually considering a Border Collie as a working partner.
100%. You don't just want a dog that's smart. You want one that's got a solid temperament, that willingness to work with you, not against you. And that all starts with the breeder. Meeting the parents, seeing the environment those pups are raised in, asking a ton of questions.
So it sounds like finding the right breeder is almost as important as finding the right dog, if not more so.
I'd say it's absolutely essential because a good breeder, they're not just selling you a puppy, they're your partner in this journey, offering guidance and support every step of the way.
Okay, so we've got the history, the temperament, the importance of having a job. It's no wonder they're called the Einsteins of the dog world, but how much of that is hype and how much is real?
Well, let's put it this way. They consistently rank at the top of the list when it comes to canine intelligence. And when you consider their ability to learn complex commands, to solve problems, to adapt to new situations, it's hard to deny their smarts.
I mean, some of the things they could do, it just blows my mind. I saw one video, a Border Collie that knew over 1,000 words. 1,000.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? They have this incredible capacity for learning, and they thrive on that mental stimulation.
So it's not just about tiring them out physically. You've got to challenge those brains as well.
Absolutely, and that's why those activities, the agility, the obedience training, the herding trials, they're not just for fun, they're essential for a well-adjusted Border Collie.
It's like giving them a job, even if it's a fun job, keeps them fulfilled.
Exactly. And that's where finding an activity that you both enjoy, that's the sweet spot.
Speaking of finding things you enjoy, I was actually surprised to learn how versatile Border Collies are. I mean, of course, we know them for herding, but they're out there doing search and rescue, therapy work. They even compete in dock diving.
They're incredibly adaptable, that's for sure. That intelligence, that trainability, that eagerness to please, it makes them naturals in so many different roles.
It's almost like they have this inner drive to be useful, to have a purpose.
And that's what makes them such incredible partners to us humans, because they're not just dogs. They're capable, intelligent beings who want to work alongside us, contribute to our lives in meaningful ways.
I'm really starting to understand the passion people have for this breed. It's not just about owning a dog. It's about this deep, almost primal bond.
A bond that goes back centuries, forged in those rugged landscapes. and it's still alive and well today.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit here and talk about health. I know every breed has its strengths and weaknesses, but when it comes to Border Collies, are there any red flags people should be aware of?
Well, one of the big ones, and this is true for a lot of larger breeds, is hip dysplasia.
I've heard of that. It's an issue with the hip joint, right?
Exactly. The ball and socket of the hip joint, they don't fit together properly, which can lead to all sorts of problems. Pain, lameness, even arthritis down the line.
That sounds painful. Is there any way to prevent it? Or are you just rolling the dice when you get a puppy?
Well, there's no foolproof way to eliminate the risk, but responsible breeding practices are key. Reputable breeders, they'll screen their dogs for hip dysplasia, as well as other genetic conditions, trying to minimize the risk of passing those on to the puppies.
So again, finding a breeder who prioritizes health, who's doing those screenings, that's huge.
Absolutely essential. And early detection is important too. So if you notice any signs of lameness, any stiffness, any pain, especially in a growing puppy, you want to get that checked out by your veterinarian right away.
So responsible breeding, early detection, regular checkups, those are the keys.
Exactly. And it's worth mentioning there's also a specific eye condition, Collie eye anomaly. That's something else to be aware of.
I remember reading about that. It's a genetic eye disorder, right?
That's right. It affects the development of the eye, and it can lead to all sorts of problems with vision, even blindness in severe cases.
So how do you know if a dog has it?
Well, reputable breeders will have their puppies examined by a veterinary ophthalmologist to check for this and other eye conditions.
So once again, it comes back to that breeder, finding one that's doing those health checks, that's really looking out for the long-term health of the breed.
Absolutely. They're your partners in this, every step of the way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The history, the temperament, the training, the health considerations. Let's bring it back down to earth for a moment. What's it actually like to share your life day in and day out with a Border Collie?
Let's just say that life is never boring. You're living with a dog who's constantly thinking, always observing, forever looking for a job to do.
It's like having a little furry Sherlock Holmes running around the house solving mysteries.
Exactly. And that intelligence, it's a double-edged sword because as wonderful as it is, it also comes with its own set of challenges.
How so?
Well, on the one hand, you've got this incredibly quick learner, a dog who's eager to please, capable of doing amazing things. But on the other hand, that means they need constant mental stimulation. They need a job, whether it's a real job or a fun job, but they need something to keep those brains engaged.
So lazy Sundays spent cuddled up on the couch, probably not in the cards for a Border Collie owner.
Not unless you're prepared for them to find their own entertainment, which might involve rearranging your furniture or maybe hurting the houseplants.
Okay, I'm getting the picture. It's a commitment. It's definitely not for everyone, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely. And that's really the key to understanding this breed. It's about finding that balance. You have to be willing to put in the work, to understand their needs, to provide them with the outlets they need to thrive, both physically and mentally.
It sounds like an amazing journey, though, for the right person.
Oh, it is. It's a journey filled with challenges, but also with incredible rewards.
You know, we've talked a lot about the rancher in these videos, and I have to say, he just seems to have this incredible connection with his dogs. They're clearly more than just tools to him.
That's the beauty of the working relationship with a Border Collie. It's a deep mutual respect that develops over time.
He was saying that he barely has to give them any commands. It's like they just understand each other.
Because they're constantly communicating, not just through words or whistles, but through body language, through eye contact, even just subtle shifts in energy.
It's like they have their own secret language out there.
In a way, they do, and that's what makes the partnership so powerful.
You know, one thing that really struck me was how the rancher talked about the importance of downtime, even for his working dogs.
That's so important and often overlooked. Even the most driven dog needs time to just chill out, decompress, just be a dog.
He mentioned letting them chew on wood, play with toys, just hang out, relax.
Exactly. It's easy to forget sometimes that they're not machines, they're emotional beings. They need time to recharge just like we do.
So again, it's about finding that balance, right? Work and play, structure and freedom.
Exactly. Creating an environment where they can truly thrive.
So for someone listening to this, someone who's really considering bringing a Border Collie into their life, what's the one piece of advice, the one golden nugget you would give them?
Be prepared to commit fully and completely, because owning a Border Collie, it's not just about providing food and shelter. It's about embarking on this incredible journey with a partner who will challenge you, who will inspire you, and who will enrich your life in ways you never imagined.
It's about understanding their history, appreciating that unique intelligence, giving them the tools they need to thrive.
Exactly. It's about embracing all that makes them who they are.
And, let's be honest, being prepared to be outsmarted on a regular basis.
Well, that's part of the fun, isn't it? They keep us on our toes, that's for sure.
Speaking of keeping us on our toes, the rancher mentioned something about the AKC, and there was a bit of controversy there. What was that all about?
Oh, right. Yes, that's a bit of a touchy subject in the Border Collie world. The AKC, the American Kennel Club, they officially recognized the breed back in 1995, but there was a lot of pushback from breeders, particularly those who are really invested in preserving those working lines.
So they were worried that the breed would become more about looks than ability, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly, because once you start focusing on those show ring standards, you do run the risk of losing some of those essential working traits.
So it's a balancing act, isn't it? Preserving the history of the breed while also allowing for some evolution.
That's the challenge, and it's something that responsible breeders are constantly grappling with.
You know, one thing I found really interesting was how the rancher talked about grooming, or rather, the lack of grooming.
Right. You'd think with all that activity, all that time spent outdoors, that they'd be a nightmare to groom. But it turns out they're actually quite low maintenance in that regard.
You mentioned those natural oils again. They really do seem to be key.
They do. They help to repel dirt. They keep the coat clean. They minimize that doggy odor that some breeds are prone to.
He said he rarely gives his dogs baths. Can you imagine?
Too much bathing can actually strip away those natural oils, so it can do more harm than good.
So less is more in that department. Who knew? Okay, but let's talk about those exercise needs for a minute, because we touched on it before. But this is a breed that needs a lot of activity, right?
That's an understatement. We're talking about dogs that were bred to work all day long, covering serious ground. A quick walk around the block isn't going to cut it.
So we're talking about serious commitment in terms of time and energy for the owner as well.
Absolutely. You need to be prepared to provide at least an hour or two every single day of vigorous exercise. And not just physical, they need mental stimulation as well.
Right. Otherwise, that pent-up energy is going to find its own outlet, and it might not be one you appreciate.
Exactly. A tired Border Collie is a happy Border Collie. That's what they say.
Makes sense. So what are some of the best ways to really tire out a Border Collie? Because I'm guessing it takes a lot more than just playing fetch in the backyard.
Well, the good news is they're incredibly versatile, so you've got options. Herding, of course, is ideal if you have the space and the resources. But there's also agility training, flyball, disc dog, even just going for long hikes or runs together. The key is to find something you both enjoy and that really challenges them, both physically and mentally.
It's like finding a job for your dog.
Exactly. And the great thing about it is it benefits both of you. The dog gets the exercise and stimulation they need, and the owner gets to bond with their dog while engaging in a fun, healthy activity.
It's a win-win situation. But let's be realistic, not everyone has the time or the resources to dedicate hours every day to exercising their dog. So is a Border Collie just not a realistic option for people with busier lives?
That's the thing. You need to be really honest with yourself about your lifestyle and your limitations. Border Collies, they're not the right breed for everyone, and that's okay. It's better to be realistic about that up front than to end up in a situation where the dog is unhappy and potentially destructive.
That's such an important point. So often we get caught up in the idea of a certain breed, but we really need to think about whether it's a good fit for our lives.
And for some people, it might just not be, and that's fine. There are plenty of other wonderful breeds out there that might be a better match.
Right. It's about finding the right dog for your lifestyle, not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. And the truth is, for the right person, someone who understands their needs, who's willing to put in the work, a Border Collie can be an absolutely incredible companion.
A partner, a best friend, a furry little genius to keep you on your toes.
Precisely. And that's what makes them so special.
You know, we've talked a lot about the working side of Border Collies, but what about people who are just looking for a pet? Is it possible to have a Border Collie as a companion animal, or are they always going to be looking for a job?
Oh, absolutely. They can make wonderful pets, but you do have to go into it with your eyes wide open.
So what makes someone the right owner for a Border Collie as a pet?
It all boils down to understanding their needs, being willing to meet those needs, and not underestimating their intelligence or their energy.
So even if they're not working sheep, they still need a job to do.
100%. Whether it's agility, obedience training, puzzle toys, or just long walks and plenty of playtime, They need to be challenged, both mentally and physically.
Otherwise, they're going to find their own ways to entertain themselves, and that might not be so great for your furniture.
Exactly. A bored border collie is a recipe for disaster.
So we're not talking about a dog who's content to cuddle up on the couch all day.
Unless you're okay with them redecorating your living room in their spare time.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the picture here. It's definitely a commitment, but it can also be an incredibly rewarding experience.
It really can. Border collies are incredibly loyal, they're intelligent, they're affectionate, they form incredibly strong bonds with their owners, they're eager to please.
It sounds like they bring a lot of joy into people's lives.
They do, they really do. But again, it's important to remember these are not your typical lap dogs. They need a lot of attention, a lot of stimulation.
And, as we've discussed, they need a job to do, even if it's just a fun job.
Exactly. They thrive on having a purpose.
You know, we've talked about all the amazing things that come with that Border Collie intelligence, but are there any downsides? Are there any ways in which their intelligence can actually work against them or against their owners?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people don't consider. The truth is, with any highly intelligent breed, there are going to be challenges. That quick mind, it can lead to them outsmarting their owners, sometimes in ways that are more frustrating than funny.
I can imagine. They're like little escape artists, always plotting their next move.
Right. They're quick learners, which is great, but they can also be quick to figure out how to push the boundaries, to test the limits.
So consistency is key.
Absolutely. And clear boundaries. They need to know what's expected of them, and you need to be prepared to enforce those boundaries, even when they try to outsmart you, which they will.
So it's a constant learning curve for both the dog and the owner.
It really is. But that's part of what makes it so rewarding. It's a partnership in the truest sense of the word.
You know, it's funny. We tend to think of intelligence as this universally positive trait, but when it comes to dogs, it's not always easy.
It's about finding that balance, isn't it? Appreciating their intelligence, but understanding that it comes with its own unique set of challenges.
And that sometimes you just have to laugh when they outsmart you because, let's face it, it's going to happen.
Oh, it's inevitable. But that's all part of the fun, right?
You know, we've talked a lot about the challenges of owning a Border Collie, but at the end of the day, what are the rewards? What makes it all worthwhile?
Oh, the rewards are immeasurable. Border collies, they're incredibly loyal, they're intelligent, they're affectionate, they form these incredibly strong bonds with their owners, they're eager to please, they're just a joy to be around.
The rancher in those videos, he talked about how his dogs, they're not just working tools to him, they're his partners, his friends.
And that's what makes the relationship with the Border Collie so special. It's a true partnership built on mutual respect, trust, a shared purpose.
It's like they bring out the best in each other, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The dog gets to fulfill its instincts, its drive to work, and the owner gains this incredibly capable, devoted companion.
It sounds like it's about so much more than just owning a pet. It's about sharing your life with this really remarkable being.
It really is. And that's what makes Border Collies so extraordinary.
I like to say, I'm walking away from this with a whole new level of respect for Border Collies.
They're definitely a breed that earns it.
That's for sure. So to our listener who requested this deep dive, we hope you're feeling well-informed, maybe even a little intimidated, but we're not done yet.
Not quite. We've got to talk herding because it's one thing to say they've got a gift for it.
Right, but how does it actually work?
How does a dog translate instinct into controlling a whole flock of sheep?
Because it's like they're speaking a whole other language out there.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
The rancher was saying he starts his pups young,
He does, yeah.
but he also talked about letting them figure things out on their own a lot.
There's that balance between instinct and training. A good Border Collie, a good herding dog, it's born, but it's also made.
So it's not just about following commands.
No, it's about thinking on their feet. Because you're managing a living, breathing, sometimes very stubborn flock of sheep.
Right. It's not like herding robots.
Exactly. You need a dog who can read those sheep, anticipate their movements.
Can't be afraid to improvise a little.
A little improvisation goes a long way.
The way the rancher talked about it, using his whistle, his body language, it's almost like a dance.
It is a dance, and he's the conductor, in a way.
And the dog is the
one who brings the music to life. The handler sets the overall direction, provides guidance, but the dog, that Border Collie, it's interpreting those cues, using its intelligence, its instincts, to actually orchestrate the movement of the sheep.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
And you see it when they work. It's incredible the way they can move an entire flock with just a look, a step to the left or right.
You can practically see the wheels turning.
That's the beauty of it. They're not just reacting, they're thinking, they're problem solving, they're active participants.
Which brings us back to that word intent, because even when they're not hurting, those brains, they don't really switch off, do they?
Not entirely, no. That's the thing about Border Collies. They have this incredible work ethic.
More than most humans, I'd say.
And when they don't have a job to do, an outlet for all that mental energy, that's when things can get a little, shall we say, interesting.
Let's talk about that. You mentioned earlier that their intelligence can sometimes be a bit of a liability, I guess.
Let's just say a Border Collie is a force to be reckoned with.
I believe it.
Their minds are always working, always figuring things out, testing boundaries. And sometimes that leads to, well, mischief.
The rancher was telling that story about his dog figuring out how to open the fridge.
There you go. They're like furry little Houdinis. They keep you on your toes, that's for sure.
It sounds like it's a constant learning experience for both the dog and the owner.
It absolutely is, and that's part of the beauty of it. It's this incredible journey of mutual growth. You're learning from each other every step of the way.
So for our listener, for anyone who's made it this far, who's really considering welcoming a Border Collie into their lives, what's the key takeaway? What do they absolutely need to know?
I'd say go into it with your eyes wide open. This is not your average dog. Owning a Border Collie, it's a commitment, it's a partnership, and it's an adventure, all rolled into one.
It's about respecting who they are, where they come from.
Appreciating that unique intelligence, providing them with the physical and mental outlets they need to thrive.
And accepting that you'll probably never quite have them figured out.
That's part of the charm. Just when you think you've seen it all, they'll surprise you with something new.
I love that. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this deep dive into the extraordinary world of Border Collies. To our listener, we hope you've enjoyed the journey, and remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those tails wagging. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.